Hello and welcome to Upper Pen. My name is Dakota, and today I get the honor of talking to Mystic Neptune, author of I Ran Away to Evil. Thank you so much for joining me, Mystic. Misty.
Feel free to call me Misty. And I'm so happy to be here, everyone.
So, for folks who might not know, what is I Ran Away to Evil about?
I I wanted to write a lit RPG, and at the time, someone was posting around a Reddit writing prompt that was uh, hero goes off to evil but loves it and has a wonderful time. So the elevator pitch was the heroine goes off to fight the Dark Lord, but gets invited in for tea and has a wonderful time and defects, lives her best life baking for the Dark Horde instead. I mean, they've got free healthcare and a 4-day work week, so it wasn't a really hard choice.
Yeah, and free therapy. What the hell?
Truth, truth. Our boy Rufus, he's got, yeah.
So I found your book through Delum Hawk, who I've talked to before, but she was like, you really have to read this one. And then when I finally got around to reading it, I was like, holy crap, why did I wait so long?
I love the house witch and I love Delum Hack, so I'm so happy.
Well, she's out here for you, so that's good to know. So for folks who love lit RPG, they're going to get a pleasant surprise because one of the narrators is Jonathan McLean. How did
Yeah,
you say that?
I put him on the list of my favorite narrators that I would love to, dream about having. And I just remember Podium contacted me and they're like, "Hey, yeah, we've got Jonathan McLean for your book." And I stopped everything I was doing. I got in my car, I drove down to the beach, and I just cried on the beach. And I was just like, I'm so happy. And I got Laura Horowitz, who I
Yes.
absolutely adore from her TikToks and from listening to her audiobooks as well. So I was like, so
I
happy. Just I needed to cry.
I didn't know her name, but I had heard her voice, and I was like, "Oh my God, this is who that is. I love it."
Yep.
Um, so the first book follows Henrietta and the Dark Lord Keith. Very wonderful names, by the way. Keith is a perfect Dark Lord name. So tell me a little bit about Henrietta first, I guess.
Henrietta is someone who has been okay. I personally have always been a very just smile through it kind of person. Like, you could do this, everything's fine, it'll all be fine. Nobody died, right? This is great. We're just going to keep on marching. And I really love her vibe of just being able to see the good in things is the vibe I really wanted to be able to reclaim after the pandemic. And cozy fantasy was becoming so big because the world was on fire,
Yeah.
right? Um, I I was reading fantasy books, but Australia's on fire and their world's on fire, and I'm like, I'm looking to escape. So I wanted to take the things that I really loved about being kind first and being friendly first and being just a person who doesn't see adversity as something that affects their personal I guess their personality. And I wanted her to just have fun and be able to open up. And one of the things in the first chapter, when she's still in that oppressive um, place under her parents, is she still has that continuous voice of sassiness, of being snarky, of just being like, oh, everything's going to be fine. Um, and nobody in her world sees it. They all have expectations of her, or they are all using her. And she just walks through it until eventually she can find someone who loves her for her who she is. So it's not that she necessarily oppresses who she is or, keeps her voice quiet. It's that she's finally in a place where people are asking to hear her voice. And that's where I wanted Henrietta's journey to go.
I love
Sorry, there's a
that.
lot of words.
No, you're good. I love Henrietta because not only does it feel like you want her to have this core sense of like I'm going to be happy regardless of what other people want me to be, but she spends a lot of the beginning of the book trying to find out who that happy person can be, which is like a
Yeah.
fun journey for an adult character.
Yes. She spent a lot of time working.
Yeah.
I think that's what it is she has been given task after task after task after task and punishments for not completing task. And there's no time where she just gets to sit down and enjoy a cup of tea. Like she did have those times where she got to escape as a younger woman and go hang out at a bakery and meet her best friend Brownie, the bard, and just experience life in those quiet moments where she could be herself and love the things she loves. But now that she's finally in this place where people are not using her, she can be herself. She could just figure out who that's going to be. And I was very excited to explore it in a magical setting.
Keith is another really interesting character because he already knows who he is and he's very self-assured and then he's very confused when he meets Henrietta.
Yes. Um, when I was imagining Keith, every time I struggled to write a line, I was like, the love interest from Lilo and Stitch,
Oh yeah.
David,
Yes.
and he's like, Nutty? Uh, that vibe. I just wanted to capture that vibe and make him a Dark Lord. Just like, what? What's happening?
There's two other main characters that I absolutely adore. And they actually feature in the next two books, right? So the first one is Rufus and of course Brownie, but you don't really get to meet her till a little closer to midway to closer to the end. But Rufus is an interesting character who likes to psychoanalyze people and help them.
Yes. Rufus's character. So one of the things that was really hard um, to convey in the cozy fantasy is that Madame Potts is changing the plot, right?
Yes.
The original plot had every single one of these characters already traumatized, going through more trauma until eventually, like a standard fantasy novel, they finally get some sense of winning at the end. And for Henrietta's perspective, winning was killing every single person in book one, right?
Yes.
And Rufus's tragic backstory is that he was given his parents were told, you need to give us one of your children as a playmate. So him at like the age of 6 was just taken away,
Mhm.
right? Some dragon swoops in and they're like, oh, you're the mayor. I'm just going to take your kid and, he can be the Dark Lord's playmate for now until eternity. And Rufus stepped up to the occasion. Like he did try as best he could in a place that was really hard. And he resents a lot of people for that. And so in his own soul searching, he got all of these skills to help manage those problems, and he shared those skills. And now he's like, everybody's got to have some therapy. Everybody, not just me. We all got to have therapy. I've asked Keith because he owes me, and everybody gets therapy. That's just the rule now. And so, yeah, it was really fun because he just, at this point in his life, and you find out more about this in book 2, but he has sensory overload. He has a really hard time in crowds. all of his skills are based around kind of absorbing information to better help the situation, whether that's like leading an army or helping this one person get through their struggles. And so he just spends his days in the dungeon with his houseplants drinking wine. He's a mess, but we love him so much. Anyway, yeah, that's
Well,
Rufus.
when he's not going around looking like watching all the best bards in the country.
Yes, secretly, and yeah, he eventually gets told off by his friends that he's not allowed to just sit in the dungeon drinking. He has to have some kind of life outside of houseplants, which I'm sure a lot of people will be like, no, my houseplants can be my life. You are so wrong. But he did find that through music, which was another way of drowning out all of that noise, was just being able to focus on something beautiful and lyrical and something that sounds pretty, and then becoming obsessed over it to the point where he is definitely, he's a number one fan. That's a kind way of putting it. He is a huge fan and does follow all of the bards, but especially Brownie, who was the first bard who really spoke to his heart and kind of captured that love of music for him. So,
Before we
yeah.
move on to Gerda, who is by far my favorite character, oh my gosh. Um, were you worried when you made um sorry, Rufus a dog-like creature that it would attract the furries or it would be awkward or anything like that?
So funny you should say that because I was in a cozy Discord. I was in so a Discord with the Crone from TikTok. I was in his Discord and chatting with some of my friends there. And I was like, guys, I have to show you the cover because they originally sent me a cover of short human Rufus,
Oh,
who is like this tall next to Bronwyn. And I kind of wish I had selected not that cover, not because I don't love the Rufus in his Beastman form, but because I love the giant brownie. You know what I mean? I wanted her to be bigger and lovelier and just like this wonderful show that she is, because she's such a loud and boisterous and fun and loving character. And um but I did get I got the first cover and it was just a dog. It was just a dog's head. Do you know in was it Family Guy? There's that dog character. The
um, Brian or
Anyway, yeah, I think it was no, not Brian. Oh, maybe not Family Guy. I sure. Okay, it's just a dog's head on a person's body, and I was like,
oh,
no, thank you.
yeah.
No. I need something more. Beast man. I need sexy, and I am not saying that is not sexy, but so it was like a progression where she would send me different beast men, and I remember getting to the one that we finally settled on, and I was like, I've seen so many versions of a dog's head now on a man's body that I can't think straight. So I went to the Crone Discord friends and I was like, okay, guys, let me know. Is this sexy enough for Rufus? And someone sent me a screenshot from their furry friend, which is just I'd tap that. You can get this, I don't, or keep it. But I was like, good enough for me. Let's do it.
Oh goodness. I'm not saying that, furries can't have their love too. I'm just
Yep. Yep. I was like, let's do it. Embrace it. You know, um, he does have all three forms,
yeah.
from full kind of like almost dire wolf size wolf to this short blonde haired man who we all love. Anyway,
He
yeah.
definitely is a short king, like beautiful.
Yes, he seems big because dogs stand on their haunches,
Yeah.
right? So he's practically this much shorter in human form than he is in beastman form. So
I genuinely appreciate this story. That's all I needed.
yeah.
So my true favorite character is of course Gerda because she is the sassy, I don't know, kind of auntie to Henrietta. Okay, so her shtick is that she's a bridge troll, and she does these elaborate riddles. I am so intimidated by riddles. Like even the Lord of the Rings ones, I'm like, man, I don't know.
Yep. I I've never been a riddle person myself, but then I married a man who puns for fun.
Okay.
Like you were saying, you were thinking of reading his book Beers and Beards, and I was going to warn you, it is a 20-hour audiobook of just puns. There's plot in there, but there is puns. And I feel like having lived with my husband now for 10 years, that that sense of, I don't want to say quick-wittedness, but like making puzzles, making puns, making um, riddles has now become a little bit more intuitive. I also love cottagecore, and there are so many adorable cottagecore riddles. Like the first one I introduced, which is that what room has no windows and no doors? A mushroom. It just makes my heart so happy.
So I
Yeah.
I I always feel a little bit like slow or behind the punchline on these, and then I get to it and I'm like mushroom. Oh, no, that makes sense. Um, did you go to like Reddit or anything to try and find these, or did you just search online, make them up?
I made up a few. I searched Dungeons and Dragons riddles for a few. Oftentimes the ones I would find would be really long, so I might reword them or shorten them. Some of the ones that I wrote for myself, I posted to my Reddit, or sorry, not Reddit, the Royal Road, and then I'd have five correct answers from my readers of that chapter. I'd be like,
Okay.
oh, shoot. Okay, yes, that is answerable in multiple ways. Maybe I can narrow it down. Maybe I love it enough to keep it. Maybe they'll forgive me.
Do the riddles keep up in book three then?
Yes. Oh yes. So there's the assassins from book two come to a head in book three.
Okay.
And at some point, they're going after Gerda, but Gerda is like an all-powerful bridge troll, so she just pops out and gives them a riddle, or throws them in the river and goes back to tea. Um, so there are a number of riddles that do pop up. I do feel like Brownie's book and Rufus's book had the most riddles because she's just constantly, and you find out from Gerda that when as soon as Gerda found out that Brownie had this thing that was happening to her with encounters, she just made it a point to go and always try and make her bridge meet her because she's better than a bandit group.
That's fair.
Yep, fair. Yeah. And she's got some powers that allow her to not stay on her bridge, which you find out a lot more in book three. And so she doesn't have to go out for Brownie. She could just let Brownie pass, but
Yeah.
she chooses to. Yeah.
Oh. See, that's why I think she's like the auntie of the series. She just wants to take care of everybody.
I was worried about book three because I decided to choose, I'm going to gently use the word toxic relationship, where it is two people who are bad at relationships who want to have a good relationship, And so they make all of the mistakes that are made in those really frustrating, toxic romance novels that you read, except because it's Gerda, if something goes wrong, she just stops everything and she's like, no, have you heard of the safe word? Obviously, that's what you have to do. Like, you don't, what's wrong with you? Not like that, but exactly like that because it's Gerda. Um, yeah.
Do they go and visit Rufus at any point to help solve their relationship problems?
Oh, that would have been a good idea. Um,
Maybe later
a
down the road.
lot of it takes place. So yes, I'm sure later down the road. And they do hang out a lot through the balls and through oh, dude, does Rufus. What is Rufus doing? I feel like yes. I feel like there could have been more Rufus. Oh, oh, yes. I'm trying to remember the plot because I just wrote it. You know, it's um Rufus and Bronwyn are very to themselves a lot, but they are always kind of hangers on to whatever crazy thing is happening, um, and making snarky comments sometimes. And yeah.
Okay. I'm excited for it now. Like, I was super excited that it was Gerda, but now, yeah. I can't wait.
Yeah. Gerda Gerda has a lot of it was really hard to write that book. The first two books I wrote in like 6 months or less, and Gerda's book took me, I think, 9 months. And when I did the edit, like I finished, I want to say January 3rd, and then I rewrote, I think, 40,000 words
Oh God.
in the final draft from what hit Royal Road to what is hitting because when you're I don't oh, did you get the spoiler at the end of book two?
I haven't finished it. So no, don't, no spoilers.
Oh, then I won't say anything. Yeah. Um yeah.
Okay.
The I will say that the main cast eventually in the third book does meet um Madame Potts and she joins the cast, right?
Ooh,
And
exciting.
my problem with writing that book was not like the plot of Gerda and Julian and the main cast, but it was how to have Madame Potts explain without just info dumping all of the crazy things that she's done over the course of 5 years to make the story not a bad ending for everybody.
Well, so that
Yeah.
kind of brings up the framing narrative. Um, so explain kind of how you framed the books, with what is it? Debutantes and Dragons? Is that the show?
Yes. Dungeon Delves and Debutantes.
That's what it is.
And Dungeon Delves and Debutantes. So Dungeon Delves and Debutantes was an Otome game. Like one of those romance games that you can play on your phone where there's multiple leads you can romance and live happily ever after with. And it's about Henrietta who goes around. And the first book was her leveling up to fight the Dark Lord. And through a series of interesting events, all orchestrated by Madame Potts, none of that happens. She just walks up the road and arrives at the Dark Lord's palace. Um, Gets invited in, has a wonderful time. No traveling around the forest, killing everybody. Um, then in the second book, it it was supposed to be Henrietta like going to the balls and because the Dark Enchanted Forest has been defeated, a necromancer returns to the forest, finds everyone, like resurrects them, and now there's an army of undead. So Henrietta has to go back and fight this army of undead. All the people who she previously fought, but just slightly more powerful because they are now undead. And then after defeating that necromancer, she goes to the next ball, and depending on who the romantic interests are and the bonus characters that are thrown in, she eventually, in the third and final act of the video game, a dragon awakens from the Dark Enchanted Wood, and now she has to go fight the dragon and the dragon's minions. And that ends with her choosing whoever she's going to get married and settle down with. But instead, none of that happens. And so the world is not being saved by Henrietta throughout all of the books, which means that Madame Potts has to constantly be making these announcements over the caste system to be like, hey guys, that orphanage is going to get burned down tomorrow. Could we stop that? Or, hey guys, this is the slave trader you're looking for. Oh, did you know that these purple penguins are being smuggled out of Pel Deep on this bridge? Please stop it. You got 15 minutes. I believe in you. Because she's not going to go out and do all of Henrietta's job. That sounds like work. But she does want Henrietta to have that happily ever after. So each of the books were in the original video game. That's what was going to happen. And now the first book is just Henrietta and Keith, and Henrietta settling into the Dark Enchanted Forest and living her happily ever after. And then the second book is the wedding of the necromancer and the paladin of light. And then the third book, so that's like the second ball. So it's like starts with the wedding, where you see Rufus and Brownie interacting with each other and having to go on that adventure. And then the third book starts when they arrive at the masquerade ball, and it cuts immediately. Like Brownie and Rufus, I'm spoiling it, they arrive at the ball, and then it ends, and then literally the third book starts 3 seconds later. And it's the final, which means that you also get to like have dragons in the third book and other things. Maybe not as many dragons as I know my readers wanted. So I might do a little short story for that one day, just on the adventures of Felowin and her being awake. But yeah. Anyway, thank you for my ramble about what's going on for the 3 books, how they're set up. They're couples, so Henrietta and Keith, and then Brownie and Rufus, and then Gerda and Julian.
And Julian is actually the Paladin of Light's brother, so you do get to meet him very briefly.
Yeah, very, very briefly in
Yeah.
other locations. He's mentioned a couple times, and he is in the north because one of the other tragic backstories around everything that's going on and is that 20 years ago the continent split because this one continent of elves had a hierarchy system where it's like you were an elf, then you could kind of be a second tier citizen as a half elf, and then everybody else was not like citizens. And 20 years ago, when the new queen had stepped up, she decided to remove half elves from the hierarchy. They were going to just be with all of the others. And there was an uprising. And so Julian's father passed in the uprising. And I think he was like 9 or 10. And he got really he really wanted to be strong enough to protect his. And so he goes north to the wall to like and be powerful as his dad was, so that he can take up the reins, because he couldn't just be the Duke like his dad was. His dad was so powerful and so wonderful and so fabulous that he can't see himself taking that role yet. But in that, he's kind of just abandoned his family, and that's also weighing very heavily on him. So what he's done is he starts writing letters to his sister and his mom to keep in touch. So all he does in his spare, like he just he just levels up his whole life, and every spare moment he's writing and penning these letters and notes and random. He's like a sticky note kind of dude. Um, so yeah.
Okay. Are you working on
Mhm.
another book yet or another series?
So I was tempted to jump to another series, but I am writing a cozy fantasy miscommunication marriage of convenience. So in book one, it takes place between like chapter 60 of book one and chapter 60 of book two in
Okay.
Pel Deep and in Cumbria, the two locations we don't really get to go to very much. And it's Bastion of Pel Deep, who is their Royal Highness's head guard,
Yeah.
um, the silver kind of dragon boy knight commander, and Countess Peregrine Fern, who is the one who's poisoned at the ball that first night. And what's happened is um, the premise is this: she has been engaged to someone she absolutely detests for a long time through a series of miscommunications. And that ends at like chapter one. The first line is like, daughter, your fiance died at sea. And everyone's like, we're so sorry, we're so sorry. And she's like, oh, can I be excused? And they're like, yeah, we've canceled all of your appointments for the afternoon. You know, you just need, I love you. I'm so sorry. Go mourn in your bedroom. Because they all think that she's madly in love with this guy. Which you find out on page one. I'll just spoil page one. She met this guy and he insulted her dad and he was awful. So she went home and she wrote his name on a bunch of papers and she scribbled out his name a billion times because she's a proper person and didn't punch him in the face. And then her maid kept finding pages of his name in her trash bin and is like, she wasn't opening the pages because that would be a breach of privacy, but she keeps seeing the name on all of these papers in the trash bin. So she goes to the king and is like, your daughter is in love with this person. So everyone's so excited because now she gets to marry that person and it's her living awfulness. And so the very first thing very first line, she finds out this person has perished at sea. And um, now the royals, her father's not the king, her father's the prime minister, are trying for a political marriage with her. And she's just happy. She's like anyone but that guy. And she's got a bit of a muscle thing where she really loves, you know, muscles are power and awful and awesome. I meant to say there's a Japanese colloquialism where it's muscles are something, muscles are life, I think. And it's a genre of romance novel where it is just simping for muscly men. And she finds out that she's being engaged to that Sebastian, who is this big, like, dragon boy, stoic, quiet, silver haired, cute. I guess he's chiseled. He's defined as chiseled in the first book. And she immediately is like, sign me up. I'm ready. Take me as sacrifice. I'm good to go. And everyone in her family is like, it's too soon. She's still grieving. And so the whole book is every single person except for them trying to stop the wedding, where they immediately like each other, slowly but surely fall madly in love with each other, are having an absolutely wonderful time. But everyone else is trying to end the wedding.
Okay. All right. Are you putting it up on Royal Road as you write it, or are you saving it?
Yes. I will probably put it up on Royal Road soon. I wanted to have 30 chapters. And then I'm running a Ren fair, a 3,000 person Ren fair in 2 weeks. So
Oh,
it's been like 20 chapters, 20 emails a day and 4 hours of phone calls every hour, just being like, I've got the hay bales. What do I do with them? Um,
okay. That sounds like a lot
so
on your
I'm
plate.
hoping to, I'm hoping as you do, just casually running a Ren fair. That's how life goes.
So
Yes.
you're also, go ahead.
The story, oh, I was going to say, I also really like that premise. So I was going to workshop it into a non-lit RPG cozy fantasy. Um, Different enough, starting similarly on the same page, like first page will, or first chapter will run same plot and then go wildly off in a different direction because it's not lit RPG. So I was thinking of making something, I don't know, 70,000 words as a just cozy fantasy at the same time. We'll see.
Okay. What made you want to do cozy lit RPG in particular?
I love cozy fantasy. And I would say that if you look at my bookshelf, it is, and um my tabs on my phone, it is only lit RPG and cozy and some spicy books sometimes because someone sends me like a Little Mermaid retelling and I'm like, this is amazing. Um, but yeah, I binge listened to Noobtown and I really like funny lit RPG. Comedy lit RPG is where it's at. And I love cozy fantasy and that gentle vibe. And as I said, I was coming out of COVID and I remember DNFing, gently DNFing He Who Fights with Monsters, who up till that point was my favorite books. Like I remember reading these books and thinking to myself, I'm a better storyteller, I'm a better writer for listening to these audiobooks because I just absolutely loved everything about them. And then it got to the world ending section and I'm like, I can't do this right now. I need legends and lattes and can't spell treason without tea and just that warm, fuzzy, cozy, heartwarming. And because a lot of North America doesn't have that, but Japan does. Japan has Iyashike and the heartwarming tag. So
Mhm.
I was binge reading hundreds of heartwarming shoujo manga, fantasy manga. And I was like, I'm just gonna write this. You know, I love otome, isekai. I read a villainess manga a day. Um, let's just do it. Let's just have fun in worlds that I love, with plots that I love, with vibes that I want to share and live in. I want to be here.
Okay.
Yeah.
I like that the lit RPG wasn't so crunchy. It was more like, hey, here's what their level is and why that might pertain to the story. Um, because when I first started listening to lit
Yeah.
RPG, it wasn't like I wasn't really into all of that. I would kind of like listen if it was funny, but mostly just skip it. So,
The lit RPG aspect, there were at the time, I don't want to say there were no romance lit RPG when I started. I'm definitely not the first. I had up till that point read Japanese and Chinese and Korean romance lit RPG and still am. But the Western world doesn't have many of them. I remember going to this huge lit RPG con section of a convention with 200 people, 200 of like authors. And I mentioned that I would love to read more romance in the genre. I like reading romance. And the two people beside me were like, "Well, I wrote a romantic lit RPG. The romantic character dies, but there is a romance." And someone else said, "Oh, I also write romantic lit RPG. It's in book 7." And I was like, I remained silent. I had a processing moment, and then I was like, okay, fabulous. Um, but there are more of us every day, and that makes me incredibly happy. And I find ones that had previously written to myself, and that makes me happy. And so I really wanted there to be more romance in the genre. And it was when I posted chapter one on Royal Road, Kana, who owns the site, was like, it's like 84%, I want to say 30-year-old men.
Okay.
And everybody in the author discords were like, don't do it, Misty. Nobody's gonna read your romance lit RPG. It's just not this is not the place for your romance novel. And it made Rising Stars. It lasted as like best rated top 100 for almost 2 years and is still in top, I don't remember. But so I was like, haha, haha.
I'm
We
always
all love yeah.
I'm always surprised by the number of men that read like romantic books and they just don't speak up. And it sounds
Yes.
like a lot of people just ignore that they exist.
There is a Reddit thread called R Romance for Men,
Oh,
and I get brought up in there a lot. Um, Beware of Chicken, I think, was one of the biggest progression fantasy novels in the Western world, and so beloved in the genre and the community. And it is a romance. Like it ends happily ever after marriage, book one. Do you know what I mean?
yeah.
And so, and every comment about it who from people who like it, which is hundreds of thousands of people, are like, it was just so heartwarming and wonderful, and I loved all the characters, and everybody got their happily ever after and their romance. And I was like, yes. So yeah,
Well, I'm glad you didn't listen to the naysayers and you put it up.
me too.
Well, thank you so
Mhm.
much for talking with me today.
Thanks for having me.
The third book, I believe, is out August 19th. Okay.
August 19th.
I would have everybody look out for that one because it sounds pretty great. And Gerda, man.
Should I should I mention HearthCon before I pop out?
Yes, I'm sorry, I forgot to ask.
I think we talked about it before I had to switch to the phone. So everybody's welcome to the online Cozy Fantasy Convention. And we do have a lit RPG prog fan panel. We have diverse panels. We have themed panels, genre panels. We have workshops where we talk about how to capture the elements of cozy and to keep stakes low, and how to just write in the community. We also have a panel that is finding the cozy community, because if you like books and you don't know where to go and talk to other people, it can be like, hey, you should follow these people who talk about cozy all the time. Go to these Reddit threads where you will be welcomed by the community. Here are the Discord links to the beloved cozy fantasy communities online. And it is October 11th and 12th of this year. And I just posted application forms to be a panelist before I hit open Zoom. I hit post and then I hit open Zoom on this podcast. Oh yeah. We're at lazydragonbooks.com, or just type in HearthCon, hearth as in the fire, into Google. I'm sure you'll find us.
And it was you and Jolly Jupiter who started this last year, right?
Yes. My husband, Jolly Jupiter, and myself, Mystic Neptune, we are in a lot of the communities around Cozy Fantasy. And so we're like, who wants to have a free Cozy Fantasy convention where everybody can just come out and have fun and talk about the things we love? And we had 40 authors, over 40 authors last time. Everyone from Travis Baldry to Sangu Mandana to um, Rebecca Thorne. We had Meg's Tea Room come out and do a panel, and just so many more. I can't even list them all. Well, I can list them all, but I'd be here for a while. The previous year's panels are still up on the website. And you can click any of the pictures of the books and it will take you straight to their Amazon or wherever they want you want to see their information. Um, and so it's a good place to be like, I'm looking for a cozy fantasy. You just go to the page and you scroll down until one looks interesting. I've definitely done that.
That sounds perfect. Do you guys do like signed copies of your books or anything that you do for like, I don't know.
I know that some people have their own TikTok shops and their own shops.
Mhm.
And so they will do signed copies. I didn't think to promote that, but I think I might just put out a little call. I'm sure
Yeah.
people would love to have their links to buy the signed copies in their write up on the page. That is a brilliant idea. I'm going to immediately write that down.
I always want signed physical copies because like I love these books so much. So
Yes, I have a trophy wall.
I
Yeah.
should start a trophy
I
wall, but
I
they're just
listen
mixed
almost
in.
exclusively.
Me
I
too.
listen to audiobooks almost exclusively, but the trophy wall makes me happy.
I like to see it, and the covers are so beautiful most of the time. And I'm like, ah, there's so much work went into it.
Yep.
Well, thank you so much again for being here.
I'm so happy I could be here. And thanks for
And
chatting.
don't forget, the third book of I Ran Away to Evil is out August 19th, and the HearthCon is October 11th and 12th. Thank you so much, and I'll catch everybody in the next one. Bye.